please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Welcome, everyone, to today's meeting. First order of business, number one, is approval of the agenda. I will move that.
Second.
All right, motion by Bittinger, second by Carper. Any discussions? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Items 2 through 7 constitute a consent agenda of routine action items to be considered by one motion. Items passed unanimously unless a separate vote is requested by a board member. Number 2 is approval of the minutes from the June 3rd, 2025 meeting. Number 3 is approval of claims. Number 4 from Board Administration, Karen James, approval of resolution for a tax suspension for initials DM. Number 5 from Human Resources, Melissa Thomas, approval of a memorandum of personnel transactions. And B, approval of the medical exam and investigator professional services agreement. Number 6 from Board Administration, Heather Van Sickle, approval of notice of property sale resolution for parcel ending in 6002, aka 2021 West First Street for Tuesday, June 24th at 4:35 p.m. And lastly, number 7, Commissioner of Elections Steve Huffmeyer received the appointment of Travis Todd as the River Valley School District Board member to replace Charlene Duncan. And with that, it ends the consent agenda, and I will move that.
Mr. Chair, I have a question on item 4.
Sure.
So, and I'd just like to get maybe everybody's input on this, but so looking at this today, this is the same person that came up last week as well on a different parcel of ground. So me looking at this and just, going from experience of somebody that was my father-in-law being in the nursing home and passed away, but they look at the state and federal, look at when you're in a nursing home, they make you sell all of your property. They make you sell everything, unless you have somebody, a surviving spouse at home and stuff like that. So they're not taking your home and things like that. But we sold everything that he had, paying for it out of his pocket until he would basically get down to nothing and where federal or state would kick in. So just some thoughts that I have here on this. I mean, I looked this piece of property up because I saw this was up on there last week. It's a different, separate piece of property. The house and property that the person lives in came up last week, which I agree with that. If somebody doesn't have that ability, we should give them their house and home and stuff like that, or let them have their house and home and not have to pay the taxes. And Karen also brought up as well that there is a regulation that says if they're getting a certain income or a certain supplement that we automatically have to do this. So I don't know if that is, I guess we don't have our attorney here, but that would maybe be a question for him, or maybe I see Tina coming up here as well. But that second piece looks to me just like a bare piece of ground. So at what point, do we say, okay, that needs to be sold, and because you have your home on the other piece already? I'm just looking for thoughts on that.
Yeah. Tina? Go ahead.
Good evening, Tina Bertram, Woodbury County Treasurer. So there are a few things on certain income. So if somebody receives federal or state supplemental income, so it is referred to SSI, but that is not to be confused with Social Security income, they're automatically deemed as unable to contribute to public funds, and therefore they are suspended, usually through DHS, is the ones that actually Department of Health will be the ones who will qualify that party. If somebody goes into a nursing home, like Supervisor Dietrich was just speaking about, again, that's another item where somebody can be automatically qualified for suspension of property taxes. It does require to their primary residence. So in an instance where there is a vacant or an adjacent parcel that is not necessarily consolidated, it would be not necessarily qualifying for the automatic suspension of taxes. Outside of that, the Board of Supervisors does have the ability, opportunity, or however, to set a policy to suspend taxes, and it should be defined in some form or fashion, which I believe the county attorney can actually answer a little bit more eloquently than I can in terms of what that process and policy is. So just to add some things in terms of what absolutely has to be suspended is those who fall into a very, it's a very defined criteria. So I just wanted to offer some of that additional information in terms of what we look at. And then when they are suspended, they do not go to tax sale.
And I guess, it's, for me, it's something to pay attention to, and I know Karen said that if she sees these kind of things come up, she definitely brings them up or leaves them off as well, but, I don't know, any thoughts on that from other supervisors? To maybe,
Yeah. So Tina, this, we have right here in the backup, they do receive the supplemental security income. That's the SSI you're talking about, right? That automatically qualifies?
And that's verified by DHS. And that would be on their primary residence. As I understand, this parcel is not necessarily their primary resident.
Correct.
Now, if they were to consolidate the parcel, then it would be considered primary resident.
Okay.
So basically, the question is, why would we suspend additional property that's not required to live?
yeah, because I mean,
Housed.
let's just throw out an example. Somebody has 40 acres with several parcels on there. Do we suspend it on the whole 40 acres, or is it, do you just do it on the primary residence and the other, can bring the income in as well? And unfortunately, it falls on this one property right now that I noticed, come up this week again.
I just want to add one other thing, and Supervisor Dietrich brings up another good point. So you have somebody who owns several 40 parcel acres for farmland, but only one 40 parcel acre contains the homestead, even though it's a complete parcel. At that point, the complete parcel would likely qualify for the suspension. But if they had, 3 adjacent 40-acre parcels, they would not qualify for the suspension. Because it's about the primary residence, and it's about having the home, being able to maintain the home, particularly if there is a spouse, that could potentially be living in the house as well.
Well, we could table this specific number 4 until next week. You could work with Karen this week and figure that out. How's that sound? That'd probably be best.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
tax sale is Monday.
Okay,
So if you table it to next week,
Week.
if it's delinquent, it will be on the tax sale on Monday.
okay.
Well, it's my understanding too, if we suspend it for this year, it comes up again next year as well. So, we could get, watch for it again, or,
Okay.
It's up to you, Supervisor Dietrich. I'm sympathetic to your line of thought here.
Yeah, I just pulled the property up on the map, and the second parcel has nothing to do with the residence, and obviously, based off the income that we have in the back, I mean, this person is, barely getting by, which is why we grant a tax suspension on their home. That obviously helps them out, but this other lot that's next to them has no bearing on what they're doing. It's not their home, it's not the garage, it's just extra property. I don't see why we have to have a tax suspension on that. I think that if they're financially in a bind, then that would be something that they should sell and offload. It's probably costing them money to have it, and I don't think that we should just continue to suspend taxes on that one piece. So, then they're not farming it or anything like that, it's just sitting there. So, I would be sympathetic to your motives there, Supervisor Dietrich, as well.
Okay. All right. I agree.
I'll move the consent agenda minus item 4, if that.
Okay, all right. Motion by Dietrich, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. On to that, 4:40 brings us to our set time from Planning and Zoning, Daniel Priestley. Item A is to receive the final report zoning commission recommendation for their 5/28/25 meeting to approve zoning ordinance map amendment rezone from AP to general industrial zone district on parcel ending in 1012 for New Cooperative, Inc.
Yes, this is, of course, the zoning commission sends their recommendation over to the supervisors for this rezone. And it's a parcel, they have multiple parcels down there just west of Highway 75 and north of Highway 141. One of them is in the AP, the other is in the general industrial, and it sort of streamlines New Cooperative's activities down there. Their goal is to build a temporary grain storage facility. The commission didn't have a whole lot of interaction at the public hearing on it as far as, so everything kind of generally looked in order. A representative of New Coop, Frank Huseman, is here tonight as well, representing New Coop, but everything from a zoning perspective looks in order.
Okay. All right. Any questions on that?
Yeah, looking over the plans, I mean, that the grain stores they're gonna build is very typical all across the Midwest, not just with New Co-op. And ideally for them to be that close to interstate and with the other infrastructure that they have there, it's kind of a no-brainer, so.
And I will say this rezone procedure is the 3 weeks, of course. So,
Sure.
Okay.
yeah.
All right. I will move to receive the final report.
Second?
Motion by Bittinger, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. With that, brings us to item B, is to conduct the first public hearing on the zoning ordinance map amendment rezone from AP to GI on parcel ending in 1012. And with that, we'll open up the public hearing. If anyone wants to speak for or against this, please come to the microphone at this moment.
Good afternoon. My name is Frank Huseman. I represent New Cooperative. Just wanted to make sure that we're presenting enough information for you to make an informed decision. Hopefully, what we presented to the zoning, we certainly appreciate the help. The reason for this project is, I guess, we've been very blessed with volume increases, and it will help the local farmers on delivery of grain. Right now, our trucks sit in line with the farmer trucks. This will allow our trucks to dump 1.7 million bushels of grain without interfering with the farm, let them get back to the farm doing what they're doing. But appreciate the consideration. Hopefully, we can move ahead with this very quickly once the zoning is done. It's really a unique situation. This parcel sits just outside the city limits. Our parcel in the city limits is general industrial, so we think it's a natural extension of what we're doing and appreciate the support. And here to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Any questions about the board?
Thanks for being a partner in many of our communities.
Well,
in
thank you.
Woodbury County.
We've
So-
enjoyed the support of Woodbury County. It takes a lot of people to get a lot accomplished, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other public comments at this time? All right. Seeing none, I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second?
Motion by Bittinger, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. And item C is to approve the first reading of the zoning ordinance map amendment rezone. And so I'll move that. Move to approve.
Second?
Motion by Bittinger, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. All right, thank you, gentlemen. All right, moving on to number 10. It's from Winnevegas Casino Resort, Tom Teasdale.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we didn't address
Oh, I'm sorry.
item
Thank you.
4.
Thank you. Yeah.
On the consent agenda, item 4.
There are action items in the consent, and there wasn't action on 4. It was, the action I recorded was to approve the items less item 4. So there needs to be action on item 4. Table, whatever you choose to do.
Okay. We would make a motion to not approve. So if you want to make that motion.
All right, I'll move to not approve item 4 on the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Dietrich, second by Carper. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. With that, let's go back to number 8. Excuse me, I'll jump into number 10. Let's go back to 8. Secondary roads, Laura Severs. Item A is approve the final voucher for project.
I'll read them.
Okay, you want to read them? Go ahead.
All right, so we have 3 different projects. Part of our process is on the final vouchers, we ask for the Board of Supervisors to approve that, and I'll go through them. So the first one was a bridge on Mason Avenue with Dixon Construction. The final voucher was $441,170.17. Good project. I wasn't involved in that. That was before, I think that was in 2021. So just asking for approval of that final voucher.
Okay. Any questions by the board?
In the backup, it says O'Brien Avenue, which is not a street. I wonder if that's supposed to be Mason.
I apologize for that. Yes, Mason.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Was there a motion? Sorry.
Not yet.
I would move approval.
All right.
Second.
All right. Motion by Nelson, second by Dietrich on item A. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. On to
Uh,
item
then-
B.
Yep. The next final voucher was for Perrin 144, and that was Port Neal Road. The final completion dollar amount was $3,279,959.89.
Now that's a very nice road, so I will move it.
Second.
All right. Motion by Nelson, second by Dietrich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. And then on to item C.
Okay, and that is Perrin 139. That was with Dixon Construction on K64, another bridge project. The completion dollar amount was $630,101.43. All these projects came in under our bid amount, so it's just a couple less items that we did on them, but nothing dramatically changed on the projects.
All right. All right, any questions by the board?
I'll move it.
Second.
All right, motion by Nelson, second by Dietrich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Now on to item 10 from Winnevegas Casino Resort, Tom Teasdale. Come on forward, introduce yourself, and today's agenda item is the Winnevegas Casino Resort requesting approval to utilize the last mile of 330th Street and part of Calhoun Avenue South for individuals to participate in a 5K run walk to raise money for the Winnebago Tribe's cultural programs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom Teasdale, I serve the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska and operating the resort in Sloan, Iowa. And we're planning with your approval to host a 5K fun run walk on Saturday to raise money for cultural events for the tribe.
Okay. And you're just requesting to use, that last
Yes, sir.
part of the mile. Laura, anything from secondary roads, anything we need to be aware of or concern? Seems like a pretty straightforward request, but.
Right. And we have no concerns with the roadway section, and sounds like they'll have enough volunteers to, protect the participants. I believe they plan on having medical on hand, and I believe you even have the sheriff's department involved, so.
Okay.
I believe.
Okay. All right. Well, sounds pretty straightforward. All right.
Sounds like a good time. I'm not a runner, so I won't be participating, but I wish you all the best. The weather looks great, so I will move it.
It says
Thank you.
walk, too. I'll second.
It's true, yeah.
All right.
That'd be normal.
That's second.
Okay. Motion by Nelson, second by Dietrich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right. On to item 11 from Conservation, Dan Heisel. Item A is approve funds in the amount of $55,000 to repair the Union Bridge Trail and wait for FEMA reimbursement of 85% of cost. Go ahead, Dan.
Yes, Dan Heisel, Woodbury County Conservation. In discussions with Supervisor Nelson, who's our board liaison, we were looking at this project, and we had gotten contracts ready and signed and into FEMA. And after we'd gone through the bidding process, and then we had concerns with FEMA on the reimbursement. We were told to slow down and see how things go at the federal level, because they're talking about doing some reorganization. Well, we slowed down, and we've been waiting. And I know Mark said he'd gotten some calls on the trail. I hear about all the time that the trail's not been paved yet. It's just, we've got over 500 feet of crushed limestone. We're able to get a lot of the work done with secondary roads and the mining crew to get that dike rebuilt so it's usable. But the final step is to put the concrete on it. And for safety reasons too, because sometimes when that gets soft, if somebody's riding a bike, my fear is some little kid's gonna be riding and their tires are gonna sink in and shoot, off the side they go. So, didn't know what we were gonna do, and Mark mentioned that I should come to you and look at if you have any funding available that you would be able to put forth, because I have nothing left in CIP to, everything's been, went to the road payment this year and then paying off our concession stand that's being built right now. So if we want to move forward with that, my request is there any funds through gaming or lost that you could pay for this out of and wait for? And unfortunately, they only give 85% back of the 100% that you spend. So that is my request on this parcel for the trail. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, so a year ago, 2 years ago, we had to run a tube through that, and we tore up part of that trail, and it was very minute compared to right now. And so it's just, there's a lot of families that walk that, a lot of elderly people that's their exercise routine. They'll walk out of Correctionville, walk to the park, and walk back. And so to have that far, that's just kind of an uneven surface, just catch a lot of flack, about it. And like you said, there's a lot of young children that they'll take bikes and trikes and ride into town, whether there's campers or people in Correctionville that go out there. And so I brought this up as, potentially it could come out of gaming, and then when they get paid from FEMA, they would reimburse the county for, as much as they get back from FEMA. And then that's kind of the same, along the same lines with item B, although that's more of a safety and first responder concern on that portion of it. But don't know unless you ask, right, Dan?
What's that?
You don't know unless you ask.
That is true.
Ron, I know you had an update.
And I'd say another option is to fund it with reserves. We can do a budget amendment to, we have to, any department, the board can approve increases or decreases, but if it goes over the service area amount, we would need to do a budget amendment. So that's another option with the knowledge that, FEMA can be reimbursed, then, that would be another option we could.
Ryan, does it have to be are you looking at it, does it have to be in that fiscal year of 25? Because it might be 26 before we see that money.
I would actually, when I was looking at it, I think 26 would be a better time to do the if that's when you think the work will be done.
Well, we've had, the contractors are waiting. I mean, we've held them off, so I could wait till July into the new budget period if that works for.
Looking at the current budget, there's about 300,000 left in this year for fiscal 25, which we're almost at the end of 25. So if that's an option we want to consider, if you can wait till the 1st of July, I would say let's use the reserves and do a budget amendment, and, it would be funded when, of course, we have no idea when FEMA's gonna. So that's we're basically want to say using reserves to fund it.
I just didn't know if you wanted to dip into, you and I haven't talked. We haven't talked about this, so I didn't know if you wanted to dip into reserves or not, just at the state of it was when we were going through budgets, or if we wanted to. And I don't know what your state of your gaming or your lost item funds are now either, because I know you've had some items on the agenda the last couple of weeks, so.
Where are we at on lost funds, Ryan? Do you know what the current balance is.
Is this something that can be used with Lost? I'm not 100% sure.
Oh, not lost, probably gaming, we could.
Game, okay.
It could use by Lost. It's economic development conservation. There's part of that was when it was
Right,
voted in,
this is-
it could be used for,
Right.
Oh, sure.
that's
Okay.
economic development, what
So
we
what
do.
is, yeah, what's that balance? Unallocated balance?
I'm willing to work with Ryan on whatever it takes, so.
I heard they're having special down and giving plasma. I mean, we could.
We could all line up.
Healthy young man,
Unallocated
Dan.
You first, Dan.
I'll go
Are we
first.
fairly certain that FEMA is going to recoup part, yeah, what, is it 85% or whatever?
Mike and I were talking, and we had talked to the state guy, and they said that it has been committed, that has been signed, we've been declared, the money's there. So
It's just
the
that-
chances of it getting taken away are pretty slim, but you've seen what the administration has done, some different things. But he's saying that we should get it. They just can't guarantee us that it'll be, you spend the money in July, you're not gonna get your money reimbursed in August. And
And Ryan, that 300,000 that you were talking about, was that conservation funds or was that total?
That's what
funds?
is in the department, or conservation's department budget. But
Left
they
till
still
the-
have.
till the
you
we've
know,
got 3
couple-
weeks.
Yeah, there's still a couple payroll. So that's why I wouldn't really recommend to try to do it with fiscal '25.
Because we'll be below 100,000, Ryan. I've looked at that with
Yeah,
our
that-
payroll and bills and stuff standing out there. I have my office manager do a projection, and we're gonna be under 100.
And that's where if, right now Lost is at 350,000 unallocated
For fiscal year.
for the
26.
fiscal '26. And as I said, the other option is to use, general reserves and just do a budget amendment.
Well, I think it makes sense. I don't know what you guys are thinking. It makes sense to use lost funds versus general cash reserves, but.
Yeah, I would prefer Lost. General reserves, especially with the payback we're gonna get, we're not knowing exactly what we're gonna amend it by, so Lost funds have more restrictions, and it makes more sense to use the funds that have more restrictions,
Yeah.
if you can.
Yep. Well, I'll make,
I'd move that we approve the funds in the amount of $55,000 to repair the Union Bridge Trail out of local option sales tax.
Second.
all right, motion by Nelson, second by Ung. Further discussion?
And that we would get, and the county would receive back any,
You would get all funds would go back to the lost fund.
thank you.
Whatever funds come back to us from FEMA. In
Okay.
fact, if we have it set up that it comes out of lost, I wonder if we could just work with Michelle that that's probably gonna be a wire transfer coming back anyway, electronic, Tina, right? Isn't FEMA? So it'll just be between these two offices to make sure it happens.
Good, all right, motion by Nelson, second by Ung. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Item B is approve $65,000 to pay for the repair of the boat ramp at Little Sioux Park.
As I put in my notes to you, it doesn't seem like that important of a deal. But if you talk to first responders, and I know Mark probably has a story, he can tell you that he's had discussions with the fire chief in Correctionville. But my officers use it for rescue as well. And I know last year they rescued 2 people off the river by putting the boats in there. If you can't put in there, you've got to go up to Odo or down to Anthem. So either going upstream or downstream. And if you're waiting 10 or 15 minutes, if you've got somebody hanging on to what we call a dead man where the water's rolling, they might not be there when you get there. So we look at that safety first, but then recreational. There's a lot of people, you do not believe how many people float the river, use the river for fishing, canoeing, kayaking. So if we don't do something, we get another flood, we probably lose the boat ramp because it's eating in behind it. It kind of comes in and it started to eat back behind it, and they're worried that if we don't get that re-rip wrapped. So that is our request, is to, once again, see if we can get you to pay for it and then have the FEMA reimbursement of 85%. So, and contracts, bids have been put out. FEMA's already approved the contracts. We've got signed contracts. We've just put them on hold because we wanted to.
So 2 things I'll add to this. Excuse me, last week, I was in Correctionville with Rob Wick from Iowa Economic Development Authority talking about these HUD funds from the flood. And this project, this boat ramp, because of the emergency responder portion of it, would qualify for those HUD dollars for the remaining 15%. So I talked to Dan about that. So hopefully, if we can submit some stuff on that, that we'll actually be getting potentially the whole amount covered, which would be great. But one of the council members was there, who is the former fire chief of Correctionville. He's head of their EMT paramedics. And he said that they have been praying that they haven't had to have a water rescue this summer, because that's the boat ramp that they use, and either got to go up to the Washita access, or they got to go down to Anthon and go upstream, which when you go upstream, it takes a lot longer. And so he expressed very real concerns about that boat ramp, because they do water rescues in it about every single year. You know, it's not something that makes the news. Normally, these people are fine, but it's because they can get there quickly. And so having him say that, and have, you know, as the department that would respond with Conservation and Sheriff's Office, to have them be that concerned, I think is serious, you know, so.
I'll add to it as well. I was just over at Little Sioux today, and I drove down by the boat ramp, and there were 3 vehicles there. I'm sure people fishing down there somewhere around the boat ramp. So it's, if it does fall apart, it's gonna be a safety concern down there. It's blocked off, so nobody can use it right now, but of course, people are inherently gonna go around it and stuff like that, so.
I'll move approval out of FY '26 local option sales tax.
Second.
Motion by Young, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Thank you.
opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Item C is approved funds in the amount of $1,500 to purchase a new law enforcement Tough Book laptop for Conservation Department.
Well, it started at 1,500. I don't know who I told. I think I was talking to Dave today, and when I price checked that a month ago, I did not realize it was a refurbished computer at 1,500. It is now 1,800 at refurbished, but the computer the new computer is 2,800. Half price of what the sheriff's department had to pay at 5,500, but they had computers that do a lot more than what we do. This computer, we have, as I said in my executive summary, I have 8 officers. We have 7 computers. 2 of them have been sharing the law enforcement computer. That means it's going from truck to truck. So if they're not together in the same park, they got to get it back, and you hook it up. It runs our mock and our tracks. Mock is a safety thing for us. It shows where every officer in the county is. Dispatch knows where we're at. It's an icon on the computer screen, and everybody can see maps and roads. And then tracks is what you use to run NCIC and write tickets. And so it just hasn't worked. Thought we were saving money, but I wish we would have back then bought it, because they were $800 when we bought them 4 years ago. And then from that refurbished one went from 15 to 18 in a month. So when I got the price checked, so I knew what I was going to give you guys, I didn't bother to go back. I thought it's only a month old. But that was refurbished, and that's my mistake. I'm sorry. But the one that that is not refurbished, I wish Wick was here, because I have no idea. I have never bought a refurbished product in my life.
Okay.
If it was me buying that computer, I'd buy the new one, not the refurbished, just because I don't want to have somebody else's problem that maybe was fixed.
Sure. Is that 2,800, does that include shipping tax out the door? What was that total, or is that the price?
That's with shipping, I believe. The 20, let me give you the right total. I've
Yeah,
got
that's
that right here. I don't want to. $2,871.01. I'll throw the penny in.
All right, well, we could potentially take this out of gaming. And so I would move, approve the funds of $2,871.01 for a new.
Just make it an even 287.
All right, well, spirit of Dennis, yes. I'll move to approve in the amount of $2,872 to purchase a new law enforcement Tough Book laptop for Conservation Department out of gaming funds.
Second.
All right, motion by Bittinger, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. I appreciate your support.
Yep, thank you, Dan. All right, on to item number 12 from County Auditor Michelle Scaff. And with that, I'll turn it over.
Okay, so what I have before you tonight is our drainage levies for the county-governed drainage ditches. In the past, the county engineer would work with the budget director to come up with the assessments. After speaking with Laura, we decided that it would better fall under the auditor's office while working with the engineer's office to come up with the recommended assessments for the drainage ditches. The engineer's office will no longer be the lead on this portion. So the first item is to set the interest rates on the drainage ditch warrants. And just as a reminder of everyone and for some of the new people, what happens with the drainage ditches is we have work that's done on the ditches. If there's not enough funds within those specific ditches to cover those warrants, then we will issue what's called a stamped drainage warrant to that individual. They can hold on to that warrant until it's called for by the treasurer to redeem, and during that time of when that warrant is issued until it's called for, it will earn interest. The interest in the past has been set by the board at 5%, and that's what I'm recommending tonight. It's up to the board to set that interest rate annually. Also, just for your reference in regards to this, the treasurer also several years ago has chosen to give the individuals an option to sell those warrants to the treasurer, so then the treasurer can hold on to those and redeem that interest when they're called for. Any questions about that drainage process for anyone who is new to the process? So item A is recommendation of 5% interest on the drainage ditch warrants.
So moved.
All right, I'll second. So motion by Nelson, second by Bittinger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0 on letter A. Letter B. Michelle, do you want me just to go through these?
Yes.
Or do you need it, just want me just to go through and?
So these items need to be voted on individually,
Okay.
so there needs to be a motion for each item.
Okay.
And we can just go one at a time. I have put that up on the screen here. I think you can see that last column, maybe not. And you should have them on your screens in front of you for the board members. So what we're looking at here is basically, if you look at the third column, the county treasurer's balance is the amount of cash that's in those drainage ditches at this time. The fourth column, which says outstanding warrants, are the amount of stamped warrants that have not been paid. Those are stamped warrants that those individuals are holding on to, waiting for the funds to be available for the treasurer to call for those. Those are entered in $1,000 increments. And then the auditor's balance is the actual balance if all of those warrants were redeemed. So we use that information to try to determine what would be the best levy for these ditches. And if you look at the auditor's balance, that's basically, as if they redeemed everything, how much would be in there. And then the next thing is to assess what expenditures do we believe that there may be for the next fiscal year. And that we've kind of talked to the engineer to try to determine where we're at. And so the first one is Anthony Central, and there is no known, to my knowledge, any anticipated expenditure, so there's no recommended levy.
I'll move it.
Second.
All right, motion by Nelson, second by Dietrich. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Item C.
Okay, so item C is Bennett McDonald, and this, as you recall from late last year, there's the discussion about the large project due to the levee failures in the area of Smithland. And there's anticipated to be quite a bit of work. The board did approve a proposal from INS to determine how much it will cost for this project. So we did get a hold of them to find out what they anticipate the expenditures will be for fiscal year '26. So this one is really going to be up to the board, what you decide to levy this year. It was discussed to have that levy spread over 5 years, I believe. And after watching the meeting and trying to figure out if that was based on paying INS for this pre-work or after the work is done. So currently, your report shows the $9,000 in outstanding balance. We do have another claim that's just pending, so it's really at $17,000 right now. So if you wanted to levy to pay the current outstanding warrants, you would levy $17,000. If you want to levy to anticipate the expenditures for fiscal year '26, the total would be $52,000 to levy. If you don't levy the $52,000 at the end of fiscal year '26, most likely we will have a deficit of $35,000, which you would levy in the future to try to make up.
Well, I'd say we just levy the full amount.
Right.
Yeah, no reason to kick the can down the ditch,
Yep.
the drain.
Or slew.
Not yet, slews later.
I would move approval, setting the levy at 52,000.
Second.
All right, motion by Nelson, second by Dietrich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Maple River has had no significant activity. Current balance is $285. Recommended levy is based on just the past 5 years, keeping the levy consistent at $100.
I'll move that.
Second.
Motion by Bittinger, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Orton Slough, small amount of outstanding warrants, but those could be called for and covered by the balance currently, so no recommended levy, 0.
I'll move my favorite slew.
I'll second that. Motion by Nelson, second by Bittinger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Poverty Hollow, I believe, has been sitting at this balance for quite some time. Recommended $100 levy based on past levies.
I'll move for discussion.
Second.
Just for the benefit of the new board members, the reason we call this Poverty Hollow is it has the lowest bank balance.
All right. Motion by Young, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Is that your favorite hollow? Poverty Hollow? Okay. It's not as good as the Orton Slough.
All right, item G.
Okay, so the next 3, if you want to just motion for each individually, but they are, all have a fine balance and no recommended levies.
I move the approval of the Smithland Drainage for $0 levy, Smoky Hollow for $0 levy, and is it Weber Creek? Also $0 levy.
I'll second that. So motion by Nelson, second by Bittinger for items G, H, and I. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Wolf Creek, you're going to see an outstanding balance of $122,000 plus. We do have FEMA expected revenue of $136,000. So we did recommend a $500 levy based on past expenditures and levy. That FEMA has been outstanding for a couple of years, just as a reference of how quickly we get our FEMA funds.
I'll move it.
Second.
All right, motion by Nelson, second by Dietrich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Wolf Creek Pump, we're sitting at a $49 balance, recommended $100 based on past levies.
I'll move that.
Second.
All right, motion by Bittinger, second by Dietrich. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Wolf Creek Pump 2 is $71.77, recommending a $100 levy.
I'll move that.
Second.
Motion by Bittenger, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, and finally, Wolf Creek Subdistrict 3 has a balance of 979, no recommended levy.
I'll move it.
Second. Motion by Nelson, second by Bittenger. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. All right. Number 13 from Board Administration, Ryan Erickson. And Ryan, floor is yours.
Over the last week, I have done some research on past CIP projects and balances. And the first item I want to bring up is from 23. There is nearly 174,000 of unspent WCICC funds. And what happened for the most part, well, there were two projects, storage and storage and storage and access points were the two projects that they actually got paid and funded through the annual projects, so there's no more expenses expected on those two. So I am asking to reallocate those funds to the firewall project that is actually an ask for fiscal '26 that, they have come and asked to start spending the funds early.
Okay.
And then the other item is LEC network. There's 95,000 that actually per a phone call prior that was actually discussed between a previous, employee and WCICC. They have already somewhat agreed to move that to cover core switches. So I'm just bringing up that as, let's just officially approve it as a project reallocation. So there are several other projects in 23. Some of them, like the Bearcat, is yet to be purchased, and the record management system is in process. So I'm not really, asking on any of those. I'm just asking for the two, to reallocate some money to fund a 26 ask, and then to fund an expense that's already, we'll say, been spent in 25.
I'll move to reallocate project 23 storage in the amount of 30,000 and 23 APs in the amount of 48,000 to help fund fiscal year 26 enterprise/edge firewalls ask. And then I'll move to reallocate project 23 LAC network to project 24 core switches in the amount of $95,814.
Mr. Chair, I do have these listed as separate motions.
Okay.
The first one is the 30,000 to
Sure.
48.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. So I'll move that first one.
Second.
All right, motion by Bittenger.
And the
second by-
amount on that first one's how much again?
It'd be 78,000 in total.
78,000, okay.
All right, motion by Bittenger, second by Carper for item number 1. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. And then I'll move the second one, it was just to relocate project 23 LEC network to project 24 core switches in the amount of $95,814.
Second.
All right, motion by Bittenger, second by Carper on that one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. That takes us on to item number B, which is the approval to allocate remainder of fiscal year 24 CIP funds and reallocate FY 24 WCICC CIP funds.
Yeah, when looking at fiscal '24, last week I had thought that 100,000 had been allocated to conservation. But what had actually happened was it was approved, there's actually an allocation of fiscal '23 funds. So of the total 800,000, there was $145,830 that has not been allocated. And it was just set aside in a note that I believe Dennis was reserving for paying for the county's share of the Iowa Judicial Court new furnishings and equipment at the LEC. Right now, we do have about $90,000 allocated out of ARPA funds. So of that $143,000, I would like to move at least $83,000 to make it official to pay off the invoice received from the Iowa Judicial Courts. And then the rest of that, we can discuss at a later time to see if we want to allocate it to other projects. Then on the WCICC, all their projects for '24 are complete. So there's $15,462 available. That the total project for the firewalls was $100,000, and in addition to the $78,000 and another $9,000 from 25 projects, that'll bring the total to about $102,000. So that 26 ask can be covered by these three reallocations.
Okay. All right, any questions by the board on that?
Well, actually, sorry, there's one, the backup storage, they had 50,000 budgeted. There's 29,000 remaining. They have asked to reallocate that to finish the data center.
Okay. All right, we'll take these one at a time. So the first one is I'll move to allocate the desired amount to Project 24 court match in the amount of $83,000.
Second.
Okay, motion by Benj, second by Carper. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Item 2 is I'll move to reallocate Project 24 backup storage unspent funds of $29,641.09 to Project 22 data center.
Second.
All right, motion by Bittinger, second by Carper. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Item 3, I'll move to reallocate unspent amounts from Project 24 tech room monitoring in the amount of $6,392.20, 24 ring upgrade in the amount of $9,023.60, and 24 switches in the amount of $46.79 to help fund FY26 enterprise/edge firewalls ask.
Second.
All right, motion by Bittinger, second by Carper. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. All right, and that brings us to item C. Go ahead, Ryan.
And the last one is in the fiscal '25 CIPs for WCICC. Their projects are all complete, and the net unspent funds is $9,061.54. I would like to reallocate that to the firewall ask, bringing that total to $102,000. So then that fiscal '26 ask is fully covered by prior year CIP funds.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's no action on this listed on the agenda. Is that on purpose or?
No, there's not, no. Yeah. Well, with that, we need we didn't catch that. So we'll have to wait on that one until next week. So we'll table that. I'll move to table that until next week. Item C.
Second.
You can put it on the consent agenda. Right?
Okay. Can we do
Yes.
that? Okay. I'll make note of that. We'll put that in the consent agenda. Thank you, Matthew. I apologize for that, everyone. I didn't catch that one. All right, so motion by Bittinger, second by Carper, to table, and put in the consent agenda. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Ryan, anything else on that one, just for the good of the board to know?
No, that, as I said, was just the unspent WCICC funds, and the other projects are in progress, are, not completed yet.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that update, Ryan. All right, that's item 13. Brings us to the last item for myself, is just the approval of the fiscal year 26 capital improvement projects, or CIPs. Ryan, you want to give us an update on that budget? The board should have saw in the backup the updated budget on the bottom of the main request sheet, but Ryan, if you want to just give us an update before we get into that.
What that is the total original ask was 3.2 million. There were some projects that were being covered by prior year funds. Those have been crossed off. There were some adjustments on the estimates. So the current ask on fiscal 26 budget, CIP ask is 2,257,000. The amount that's available to borrow is 1.2 million. What has been previously approved is 898,000, which includes the 600,000 for the LEC demo and all the WCICC projects. However, with the reallocation of the prior year CIP funds, 100,000 of the, it has now funded the enterprise/edge. So now we have about 402,000 that is available for 26 CIP projects. The three items at the bottom is fiscal 24 unallocated. That is the 143,000 minus the 83,000 that was just allocated to the district court match. There was a project in 24 for district health sidewalk that has been completed. So there's $27,975 available from that project. The last item is a fiscal 25 project that the WCICC staff was able to get done without the need of the CIP money. So that project will not be completed, and so those funds are currently, in that project, but will have no expenses to it.
So with that, do we need, for that 50,000, do we need to safeguard that? And act like it's not there, or is that truly available to spend? Or is it
At the moment, I would consider, we'd like to safeguard it because we are in discussions with the record managements, and I don't know the exact amount that is going to be needed to complete that project.
Okay.
But I just wanted to list it just as an item of note.
Sure. So altogether, we have, minus that 50,000, we have $492,805. The 402 plus the 62,830 plus the 27,975. Yeah, make sure my math's right, 492,805.
Yep.
Okay. All right, well, with that, let's,
And that was Iowa State math, so you can take it to the bank.
I will never question that math.
Okay, thank
oh
you.
boy. Let's keep her germane, let's keep her germane. No. All right, well, let's dive into this. I know we've had plenty of discussion on these. Thank you for all the board members giving due diligence to this and looking at this, so let's just go through.
Daniel, I did have one.
Sure.
The adjustment for the Dorothy Pico Center Foundation from 372 to 32, that is, there is still nearly 19,000 in the 23 CIP. The work has been done. Kenny believes we still need to do some monitoring, so there's some purchases of, some items for that. And he felt to maybe bring it up to a total of $50,000, because there may not be any immediate need, but we all know something could happen and we may need more than 50.
Sure.
So
Is that 32 reflected in you down there where you have, so you say you have projects already approved, or no?
no, that is in the line for the fourth line of where it says Dorothy Pico Center Foundation.
Right.
The original amount was 372,000. The adjusted amount is 32.
Right, I mean, the 32, is that already calculated in your budget down here?
No, that's not
Okay,
approved.
that's what I'm wondering. Yeah,
That's
32.
just the amount to get it up to 50,000.
Okay. All right. Well, I know, let me just start off here. I know we talked about last week about the licensing software for the Celebrite, for the sheriff. Joshua recommended that be a gaming item, or not a CIP item. I would like to see us approve that out of gaming, since that's critical to our law enforcement right now. So I'll make a motion to approve the 21,100 out of gaming for the license and software for Celebrite.
Second.
All right, motion by Bittinger, second by Nelson. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. I know last week, I know Supervisor Nelson, you brought up about HR, the carpet potentially coming out of gaming. I know you brought that up. I would move that. I would move to the HR carpet project for $25,000, up to $25,000 out of gaming.
Well, I see Melissa left, but I would like to ask her what the quote was on that. That seems high to me. And I realize that if we allocate that, doesn't mean they're gonna spend all that, but that just seems high. And Kenny, you haven't been involved with any quotes on that, really, have you?
Haven't gotten any quotes. Recently, I did get some carpet quotes, would be several months ago. I think the quote without moving cubicles or furniture out of the way, I think was around 5,000.
So in light of all these projects, I agree with you, Supervisor Nelson. We could say up to and have, we can ask the department heads, elected officials, whatever's approved tonight, for them to work with Kenny and get bids, just so we know we have some hard costs. We can approve up to the amounts.
Well, if it's approved through gaming, does it need to be done tonight?
No,
No.
no.
Why not?
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, let's take that one off the table. I will actually rescind my motion on that and make a note. And we can bring that up once I'll work with Melissa and have her, Kenny, I'll have her get with you and get maybe some quotes on the carpet, so we can get some hard numbers on that. Okay.
Well, then I would like, we talked about the rescue truck for emergency services last week. They got one that's one of their main trucks pushing 200,000 miles. I see we've got an adjusted amount down. Drew, I'm guessing you priced a gas engine option in that truck. Is that, so the 90,300, is that what you would need to get that truck? Okay. I would move approval at 90,300 for the emergency services rescue truck.
I'll second that. All right, motion by Nelson, second by Bittinger. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Thanks for your work on that, Drew.
All right, let's keep a tab here of where
Yep.
we at. So that gives us 402,505.
Well, looking at the Dorothy Pico Nature Center, I mean, obviously, if we don't keep monitoring that, we don't want to lose the building that we have out there. That's really nice, and I think we need to do that, and I'll move to approve the 50,000 for that.
Be 32, correct?
Yeah, we
Is
only
it-
need
do you want
32
the-
to bring it
you didn't
to
wanna
a
bump it
total
up
of
to-
50.
Okay, I'll move to approve 32,000
Okay.
for that.
Second.
All right, motion by Dietrich, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. And that brings us to a new total of 370,505.
I drove by the emergency services today. Drew, you weren't there. You're out on a fire call. Somebody caught a grass field on fire or something like that. But, looking at safety in front of there, tripping hazard and stuff like that in front of the EMS office, that looks like, it's safety concern to me, something that needs to be replaced, and it's definitely old. So that 44,000 there, I think probably needs to be done as well. I would move to approve the 44,000 for the EMS main front replacement.
Yeah, it's, that concrete is something that's like, you just don't feel like you get that the best bang for your buck. But I know it's not ADA compliant, as broke up as it is, and there's a lot of meetings out there that there's a lot of people coming and going, and I mean, that's why, District Health did theirs, you know, a year ago, same thing, and, we have to have a halfway decent sidewalk to get into that thing.
And they use that as voting out there as well, to,
Yeah.
voting time.
Okay. All right, did you second that?
So I will
Okay.
second that. Thank you,
All right.
Dan.
No, you're good. All right, motion by Dietrich, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. All right, that new total brings us down to 326,505. Looking at the rest of these, I'm just for me, some of the big returns, the treasurer paint, the anthem paint, and then the auditor carpet paint blinds. I know these haven't been updated in many years. I know that's a lot of forward-facing to our citizens, making sure that they have a great experience when they come into our buildings, and making sure that we also update our buildings. With the remaining, we could do all three. I know that with all these, I would request, if we approve any of these, that that our elected officials, go out and get hard bids and work with Kenny to make sure we get solid prices on these, to make sure that we don't go over. Hopefully, we can go under and get these, but that's just my thoughts. I'm not gonna move anything just yet, but.
Well, and so I went out and got by Little Sioux today as well, and something that's one of our flagship parks. It's definitely full every weekend if you go over there, and especially with them building a new concession stand out of the funds that they bring in from, camping and stuff like that. It's a beautiful park. A lot of people go there. Obviously, we're repairing the trail through there as well, but it's kind of a safety hazard as well, and that road is, not good. It felt like a speed bump every 10 feet, basically, but it's something with the flagship park that we have over there, and it seems like it's been going on for quite a while now, that it needs to be replaced. It definitely is breaking up. But my thought is basically cutting that 536 in half and doing half. I know Director Heisel's got that bid, from the department that's doing D38 over there, but I think it's just something, again, public coming in there and seeing how beautiful the park is and driving across that road, or you have somebody, tipping over on a bike or a tripping hazard and stuff like that. And that's kind of my thought. But it would be about 268,000 would be about half of that.
I know we're all squaring for position for the last dollars, so I'll throw my 2 cents in. And obviously the one that I really think also needs to be passed tonight would still leave funds left to do some of these other ones, but the mobile maintenance shed that Secondary Road has, that's right on Highway 20, was built in the 50s. It was not built for the purpose that we're using for today. The building is rusted out. When you visit with our employees in the wintertime, on cold days, they actually watch the propane fill level go down as the day goes. The utilities are absolutely eating us alive. It's not big enough to fit a lot of our machinery in anymore to work on. It's not, even the cold storage part of that facility does not hold all the machinery at that district. And so a lot of that machinery ends up sitting outside, and we're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of machinery that just sits out in the elements. In the cold storage part of that, because it's not heated, we have to plug in machines so that they'll start on the cold mornings. Not only is and I know this because on our farm in the wintertime, we've got to plug in our tractors too. The electricity costs of block heaters on machinery is just incredible. So again, we're losing the utility battle there, but also it's an incredible fire hazard. If you were to visit with some of our volunteer fire departments on some of the equipment fires that they have, if they're not in the fall, they're in the wintertime, and it's a block heater or an extension cord that's shorted out. And I would hate to have our guys show up to work one morning and all of our snow plows, or a good chunk of them, are in flames. I don't know that there's a building that is pushing 80 years old that hasn't had really any money soaked into it at all in the county. Laura has worked, and Marcus before her worked on this for many, many years. And the new site that they'd like to see something built and consolidate some property that we have into one location is likely going to come up for sale on a public auction this year. And so I think it's wise of us to look at what is costing us money right now, every single day, and work towards alleviating that. And if there's a very strong likelihood that our ideal, site to build is going to come up for sale, I really think that we need to make a move on that. We see what these machines cost. They go up every year. It's time that we do something different. And I get complaints from the city of Mobile because that site looks like crap. No offense to your department, Laura. It's nothing that they did. But it's just that building is decrepit and old and in many ways falling in. So I would really like to see us, obviously this building project for that new maintenance shop is a multi-year thing, but I'd really like to see us get the ball rolling this year.
Yeah, I agree. I got by that, the secondary roads building there as well. It's not nice. I mean, I could argue that every town would probably say that even Lawton would be like, oh, it's an eyesore on the edge of our town, and Hornick and, Odo as well. But, I mean, I agree, with the new building. My thought is it would just stay on the property maybe that it's on. Because even if we don't get that piece of property built, now we've thrown $150,000 there that could have been used somewhere else. And we have to build a new building on top of that, coming out of funds somewhere when, we're sitting really tight, obviously, on budget. So we don't even know how we'd fund a new building once we get the piece of ground and utilities when you have utilities sitting on the property that it's on. I know, yeah, you'd have to demolish the building that's there and build where it's at, a nicer building. Because obviously, I know the buildings next to it probably don't look the best as well, and Mobile probably complains about those too. So that's kind of my thought on that.
With the Little Sioux asphalt resurfacing, if we can't put asphalt on there, can we put gravel on that to fill those potholes so it's nicer to drive through?
It's already asphalt as well, so it'd either have to be completely
I see.
busted out.
Oh, okay, I thought maybe it was a gravel road out there.
Tina?
Good evening again. Just talk a little bit about the 3 CIP projects for the treasurer's office. I know the painting is kind of a nice to have, makes it look a little bit nicer and better, a little brighter. I think for the main facility, again, it's probably more of a want than a need compared to some of the other ones. So that would be something that, we could probably strike if I know it's kind of on the bottom of the barrel there, but just kind of remove it and just talk about what we might need to do in the future and maybe look at it again another time. In terms of the painting at Anthem, that is something that I would like to work with Kenny on a couple of critical items, but don't know if it actually falls into a CIP when we talk about some of the thresholds. In terms of protection of the building, all the windows have wood frames on it, and they are pretty much not painted anymore. There's probably some caulking on the outside of the building, along the building, that has some pretty big gaps along the sidewalk, and it looks like they put some, like a concrete ribbon, I'm gonna call it, around the building to help water flow away. So it's not really necessarily a CIP project, but I do believe it's something that, because we don't really have a budget, Building Services doesn't have a budget in it, we don't really budget any of that kind of work necessarily in the treasurer's budget, but maybe to look at something there from a critical perspective in terms of a protection of the building itself. But again, that is something that maybe we move it off of the CIP and have a different conversation in terms of how we might want to address some critical needs out there. Okay. The DNR office, I threw it's about 500 square foot if you pace it off. I did about $250 per square foot budget. The thing on that for me, not only is it an operational efficiency, But it's pretty tight space for people to walk around and kind of navigate around in terms of, I don't know if it creates any kind of safety hazards with people or ergonomics, because we can't really, there's not enough space to put a stool at the front counter for people to stand. So if we're really, really busy, they're standing pretty much all day. Again, that's a pretty high number. If it were to be considered, it's a budgetary number. I mean, obviously, it's something that I would rather get a hard number for before anything would ever obviously get approved. Penny has helped quite a bit coming over and looking at it over the years. I know he's just kind of been, like I've said before, he's taken up a lot of his time with the LEC. So he's not able to focus on some of that, I mean, I don't know if it's something that really falls in his purview, but I'm thankful that he does actually come over and take a look at it and try to sketch some things out for us to see what might be functioning for us. So, again, the budget was just a total, it's a $250 a square foot price just to try to cover everything you might have to do in a very small space.
Okay.
So anything, if we could talk about it, would be great. If not, I understand there might be something that's a little bit more important, or maybe a little bit more in line with safety items than that. But that'd be my thoughts on my 3 projects. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tina. Thanks, for Dan.
Dan, Heisel Conservation, I would, with the comment on the road and the condition, I'd like to see if you'd allow me to enter these in for you to look at. I have a packet of pictures that shows the road.
Would receive.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Nelson.
The worst one on front, but it's the second one.
Motion by Nelson, second by Dietrich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Yeah. Dan, these are the same that you submitted back during presentation, I believe, right? Yeah. Yes, Michelle.
Yes, Michelle Scaff, County Auditor. I just wanted to advocate a little bit for my project. Again, this 200,000 was just kind of a guesstimate without knowing anything. The biggest thing that I'm concerned about is the security of the election side, and I think I talked a little bit about this when I presented originally, in that we don't have a secure location where individuals can come in from the public and walk right past. So if you come into our office now, we've got kind of like a plastic chain that will prevent them from coming through to where our individuals are working. We've had several individuals that are citizens and different people in the past that have just walked right on back. They don't know that that's the barrier, that there's a workspace back there versus the public. So that's a concern also, that the integrity of elections and just making sure that all of our ballots and all of our things for elections are secure back there. I'd be willing to do this, in a couple of years if possible. We already have funding CIP for the recorder's office carpet. If we could get the carpet moving in the auditor side and a secure entrance, that would be a start. And then I also wanted to remind you that I had an individual we were going to buy used cubicles from, the same ones that are in the IT department, if you've been up there to see their remodel, and they cost 20% of the actual price. They're used, but they're like brand new, so we have an opportunity there. So appreciate your thoughts on the whole process.
Thank you, Michelle.
And Chairman, I just want to, on gaming, we do have $362,000 available. That 25, and so 46 of that has been approved, so we're now down to 320-some thousand. If any of these you want to consider gaming with.
Okay. You said 320,000, you said?
Yes, 320.
Thank you. Yes, Laura?
Yep, Laura Severs, Woodbury County Engineer. I just wanted to backfill a little bit more on that, shed in Mobile. I believe that the request has been in for the board for the last 10 years, because that's when the drawing for the new building was put up. There'd be some changes to the drawings that we have. The existing site could possibly work. We will need to probably buy some acres behind it, probably to get everything to work if we did want to centralize everything for that shop. The issue is during construction, which is going to be over a year, where do you put all of that equipment? Where do you put sand, salt to make us still be able to do a good job, for the traveling public? And so if it would be all right, if we would, I would at least like the opportunity to talk to the landowner to see if it could be a reasonable dollar amount. And we do have people very interested in the property that we are currently on also. So I don't see that being an issue, that we couldn't get rid of the property after we were done using it. So I just wanted to add a couple of those items. The building is in really bad shape. There's no employee here at Woodbury County that works in their conditions in those buildings. And so it is a safety concern, but I know it's a big ask, and I know there's very important things to also be done. So thank you for bringing it up, Mark, and thank you for visiting those shops when you guys have time. They do appreciate you guys seeing the conditions they work in, so.
So Laura, to your couple of points here, there is a lot of interest for the property right there. It's right on Frontage Road. It's right on Highway 20. So I think that we can trade, I think there's a very good chance we could trade the 4 acres that we're on for 10 acres. And part of the reason that we want something bigger is that we have another site north of town where we keep a dirt pile. Currently, there's a gravel pile, there's an iron pile there. And if you talk to the sheriff's office or first responders, how many people wreck into that pile in a year's time, we're lucky that we haven't been involved in a lawsuit. Kids will take four-wheelers up on that dirt pile and use it as jumps. It's just, it's not a good thing. The guys have to take equipment out there anytime they need to load it. And so Mark and then you have both saw this the same way of let's get one compound where everything's there. It's behind a fence. We don't have people, you know, on our property doing things that could hurt themselves or hurt one of our employees or hurt our equipment. And so to me, that makes sense. As far as the property behind where we're at, unfortunately, you know, knowing that family, very respectful family, but there's been a lot of interest for a lot of different
Probably.
things on that
Yep.
property, and they haven't entertained one iota of letting a foot of that go. And I just do not see that happening, which I think also adds a lot of value to the space that we have. Because if that property behind us is never gonna come up for sale, then the 4 acres that we own right on Frontage Road becomes some of the last development potential property in Mobile on the Frontage Road. So anyway, I think all good things. Thanks for what you've done, but I would really like to see us get started on this, and thanks. I forgot that it had been on the CIP wish list for 10 years. That's a long time. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Let's get
Kenny
to
Schmidt,
questions for you too. So.
Building Services Director. Me first, then I'll answer your question.
No, you go.
I did not put in a 2026 CIP for a building services building because I thought it was a far reach. We need one of those to store our equipment in, to build a shop in, and record storage. As you know, it was originally part of the LEC construction contract. There was a $250,000 allotment that would be toward that. We sacrificed that money some time ago towards the main project. I didn't, I guess I really wasn't aware, I'm not sure others were, that we had upwards of $300 and some thousand of gaming money that might be discussed as being utilized. I'd like the board to consider using some of that money for a facility for building services, again, for a building services building to put our equipment in. It's not economical or practical for us to transport mowers and snow moving equipment all the way across town on a weekly basis. So again, not asking any specific dollar amount, but would like the board to reconsider that option. I know in the past we've talked about things like connexes. A connex just isn't something that would work for what the requirements or what the real needs are. So, thank you. Answer your question, Mark, what would it be?
After the meeting last week, you and I know Melissa left, so she left you high and dry. But you and Melissa and I talked about cubicles and desks and doing the study with the work comp people. Is that something that you would recommend we do that study first and then see what type of cubicles we need? Or is there a good chance that like the used ones for the auditor's office would fit what we're doing, or maybe that has nothing to do with it? What's your?
I'll give you the same take. or the same stance that I took when we were evaluating the new LEC. So the county has had some previous history with some ergonomic and employee medical issues, and some of those were related to cubicles. So the stance I took, although it was a more expensive one at the Law Enforcement Center, was to purchase ergonomically correct cubicles that are automated and motorized. It takes away all the ergonomic issues, and I think most of the medical issues that come along with non-adjustable units. If that helps answer the question.
Unless anybody else has any questions on that, I'll go. So the next question, so Tina talking about the little courthouse in Anthem with the paint, being bare on the windows, you could have rotten wood, around some of those frames, and that building kind of tends to be forgotten about. Do you know, and I know you've only been here, so many years, but do you know, has that building ever been looked at for tuck pointing or anything like that?
That building has never been looked at, period. There's never been funds available to look at that building for anything other than we need this and we need it now. Examples of that are, we had a furnace go bad. I believe we had a water line go bad under the floor at one time. We had a roof leak, a pretty severe roof leak. So we address those kind of items as I'm going to call them emergencies that pop up.
The flagpole?
Flagpole.
Okay.
And there was supposed to be a honey-do list on that one that
Oh, that's
hasn't
right.
been done yet.
I did stop and look at it.
So I don't disagree that an assessment shouldn't be done for the building. I don't disagree that it's probably going to need windows and other items that we really haven't looked at because there's been no funding available to even look at it to see what it needs, so there wasn't a point.
My general theme here is that we're keeping up these buildings so they're not inefficient and
Right.
costing us money.
Right.
And so if we've got, and that Anthem building is not very big, so it's not like it costs a lot to heat and cool it, but if we've got windows that are leaking, whether it's water or heat or cold air, I'm just not a fan of that.
I want to clarify something, so I apologize. I'm not necessarily thinking that windows need to be replaced.
Sure.
But I do know that when it's wood frames and things like that, if we don't protect it with some sort of paint or something like that, it's just going to cause it to deteriorate more. And so those, I hate to say that building services could go out and paint it. I'm sure that he has capable staff that can do it, but it's not necessarily the best use of their time. It's just kind of one of those things where it is an old building. Is it almost 100 years
I
old?
think so, yeah.
It's old. It's older. For some of the boards that may not know past history, that building was kind of, I'm going to call, dropped in our lap from the city of Anthem because it had some problems and they couldn't maintain it or couldn't afford to maintain it. So it was a bit of a donation, if you might call it that.
And right now, the county does own it. If we were to discontinue using it, it would revert back to the city in terms of ownership. Kenny mentioned something about, the heating and cooling system. I think it was last year. I think I closed the office 2 or 3 afternoons because
right.
the system went down and they worked as late as they could, but it got to about 92 degrees and I said, go home because it's just going to get hotter. I think also there was a sewer line issue where they were out there for quite a while trying to snake out the toilet and ended up going right out into the street, and they were there, I think, all day trying to get that fixed, and that was obviously an outside subcontractor that had to come in and do that. So yeah, we do generally handle most of the issues on a case-by-case basis. I know that we've had building services out to repair locks because, the doors aren't necessarily, it's an old building. I mean, so it doesn't necessarily come with the same type of windows and door systems that you might see in a more modern building.
All right. So, do you have something? I got something.
Do you have anything more for Kenny?
No, I don't.
Can I make
Thank
one
you.
comment to Kenny
Sure.
that's why he's here? And Kenny hasn't been lost on me, and I don't think any of us here, the funding that was in the LAC project for your building. And I know that I'm one of 5, but I would like to see us, when we hold these people accountable and we get that settlement back, that's part of what that money goes towards. Because that's why it was there. That's why that money was designated there. We know that you've got a lot of equipment, a lot of things going on out there. I don't think any of us here, I mean, I was just speaking for just myself, but I would like to see you have a structure out there. And I can't imagine what you've been making it work. And I appreciate you and your guys making it work, but that's how I would like to see that flow. So, but
I
thank you.
agree.
I agree too, yep.
All right, Dan Huss, Conservation. I just wanted to follow up on my road project. I probably should have stayed up here the first time, but a couple things I want to correct. I did not get bids, nor did I do the paperwork. The county engineer's office and her staff helped us out tremendously with those bids and working with the contractor, dealt with the contractor, and has done all that to date, drawn all the plans, and done that for us. So doing that in-house, that's saving us a lot of money. And so I appreciate that working relationship with the engineer. And for the record, we have been at this project for over 10 years. Have we come to the supervisors with this? I've been here 8 this November, and we've asked for it every budget period. And I know it's been in the budget periods before that. The last work done on that road was in 2017. They did a slurry to protect it, a slurry project. I think it's in the pictures there. So it is, if we could do it like, we've paid for some of our own roads. We've got a $1.1 million bond with you right now. We're paying off every year. I wish I had more money in it coming in for reserve, for CIP, for revenue, but I don't. I mean, we use that fund to build concession stands. And to give you an example, when I got here in 2017 and started the 5-year renovation of Browns Lake, that was an over a $2 million project, and not one tax dollar went in it but my salary. I used donations, grants, and CIP funds to pay for that. And look what Browns Lake is today. So we do our part. So when we're up here asking for a road, I mean, we're tapped out. Like Dave said, we bring in over $300,000 a year in revenue from camping and cabins. Little Sioux Park is $110,000 of that, and it can be more. It was $150,000 in '21 that they brought in alone just in their park and revenues. So it is important for that road. You mentioned, Supervisor Dietrich, of cutting the project in half. I do have a map. I don't know if that's going to do any good right now, but it does show what was proposed when they owned 1.8 miles. I put in pink what would be 9/10 of that, and that would do a good majority of the road that is in bad shape, and you, as you know, being out there. And I would like to enter this if somebody would.
Has it already been entered in your
This
original
one.
presentation? Was that not entered?
This one hasn't with
It
the
hasn't?
change.
Okay. All right, I'll move to receive.
A second.
Motion by Bittinger, second by Carper.
The road in pink is the reduced amount.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
One for,
Yeah, one for Michelle.
So then I do just have a quick question then on the secondary roads, that piece of ground. I mean, do we necessarily, because I'm looking at it right now on Beacon with, looks like we have about 5 acres right now that the secondary road sits on there in Mobile, which we'd probably need a little bit more to expand. I mean, obviously, bigger building, but do we necessarily need to buy 15 acres? Could it be 10 acres? Could it be 8 acres,
8 to 10 is what they're looking at, I think.
Okay, so
And did I hear, Laura, you said you might be, did you guys say there might be like a land swap? Is that what you were saying? I want to make sure.
Well, there's parties that are very, very interested in our property now.
Okay, so we could sell it.
And because of, it's more commercial type property, and we'd be buying most likely agricultural
Okay.
property, that we could buy double the acres for probably what
Gotcha,
we
okay.
could sell ours
Okay.
for. So in a sense, it would be kind of a swap.
Okay, that's why I just want to make sure.
But definitely not a swap.
It's
I
not
don't
a
think
swap.
that's legal. so
Right, that's
we
what I
can't
thought,
do that.
okay.
Yep.
Just want to make sure I heard that right.
I would just caution us all from being too precise on what we think our property would get or be swapped for.
Yeah.
Since this
sure.
is a concept.
That's exactly my thought, because we don't even necessarily know we're gonna get the property that they want and/or sell the property that we have, where, so if we cut this conservation in half to 268,000, that still leaves us 58,000. You know, I mean, if it, possibly that property came up, you know, we could use that and possibly some of the, you know, dust control money that we cut, you know, which, I mean, we'd be taking it out of the secondary roads budget, which, you know, I hate to do that, but, you know.
Well, with the remaining, here's my thought, I'll just put it out there. I understand the road project's good. I don't want to go forward with the road project this year. I would use the remaining and do 150,000 towards the land to protect the equipment, 100,000 for the auditor's office, 50,000 towards the treasurer's and Anthem courthouse combined. And that would still give us a remainder of 16,705.
So would you say that again, Dan? So I just like,
150K for the land, for the new secondary roads building, 100K for auditor's office, and then 50,000 for the treasurer's office and the Anthem office combined. However, that can be used, whatever's best needed. That all needs to go to the Anthem courthouse, and then that would give us a remainder, 16,705. I understand. I understand the road is important, Dan. I appreciate your due diligence and all that, and yeah.
I just wish you had a true cost of what those projects are gonna cost you.
Right.
Mine is true cost.
Right, right, yeah. That's just me, my thoughts right now. I think, and then maybe next year try to tackle that, the road and all that. But I do understand that you're saying, Dave, right, the importance of the road too.
Procedural question.
Sure.
Auditor Scaff, are we allowed to motion on several items at once if we agree, or should we do what we've done and go piece by piece?
I would recommend one motion for each, so it's clear.
Okay. Well, you know, we could continue with this, but I don't think we need to for one of these, because I'm also on the side of funding the 150,000 for the possible land acquisition. Reason is because if we don't take this step right now, the step will not be available
Right.
to take in the future. And so the prospects in the future could certainly change for the better, depending on interest. And that's why I would, at this point, it seems like there's a board majority, so I'd like to move approval of the 150,000 to the real estate for Millville shop item.
and I'll second that. I think you're right. If we can't, you know, find the funding to replace a 75-year-old decrepit building now, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, it just,
And I should also mention, just so the other projects are aware, if this is not used, if this actually doesn't happen, if for whatever reason the county's not interested, these funds would still be available to be reallocated.
Correct.
that's correct.
And I would personally prefer that we consider this list and not, so anyone up here defending this for the second week is not thinking something else is
Correct.
gonna come out of left field and get the money.
Correct, yeah, Matthew, yeah, I agree. This, whatever we don't spend goes back to these currently listed here, yeah. Yeah. All right, so motion by Ung, second by Nelson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Hey,
Motion passes 4-1. All right, so that takes us, let's get a total. All right, that leaves us 176,000 left. So I'll make a motion. I definitely think the auditor's request is reasonable. So I would make a motion up to 100,000. I'd move to approve up to 100,000 for the auditors and recorder carpet paint blinds.
What portion of that is the cubicles? Or do you have a rough?
I don't have it broken down, no. When I spoke with building services, there was no specific recommendation to get an estimate or get bids or anything at that time until we know more.
Yeah, and I guess I would just have a, question, if you say for, like during the voting time or whatever, for safekeeping of the records, which you probably don't have a true cross broken out, then what, for just that area to protect that, what that would be.
I do not. If you were to approve up to a certain amount, I would use that. Priority number one would be to make it a more secure location. And then if there isn't enough money to do everything that is needed, I'll do what's needed, and then in the future, potentially come back and ask for additional.
Kenny, what's your, with your current schedule? I know you don't have very much going on. What's your capacity to spend some time in the auditor's office doing some scheming as far as security and putting some costs there? And then maybe with Tina, if you guys go out to the Anthon office and look at what that building would maybe need. My concern is that, because we don't have to approve all these CIPs today.
Correct.
My concern is these are, big numbers, like Anthon, okay, 60,000 for paint, I think is too high. But if you've got to replace the front door, if you've got to replace some windows, then some of that could make sense. That's kind of the stuff that I would like to get nailed down, but.
Sure. All I can say is this about that. Within the last couple of days, I've had at least 2 more projects dropped in my lap that we've wanted pricing on, and Dan knows that. That on top of the other things that we're already working on. My schedules are pretty tight. I can work on trying to get some basic numbers together. I don't recommend that we get hard numbers together. The way this CIP process used to work is I would send out an email requesting CIPs from the department heads. Those would come back to Dennis and I, and from there we had an idea what all the CIPs were. At that point, Dennis would usually instruct me to try to get a ballpark price on each one of those CIPs that pertained to my department, which I would do. So just to let's use an Anthon office CIP, for example. That would come up. I'd go take a look at the requirements or the needs of what that project would look like, and I'd normally ballpark off experience, a square footage number, and say, okay, it's going to be about, let's say $80,000. It's going to be about this for that CIP. All those CIP requests would roll similar to that. Of course, other department heads that weren't part of my project would input their numbers. Like some of them did have hard numbers, maybe such as conservation. And then the process would move from Dennis to the board. The board would then do as we're doing this evening. They would approve each one of those or not approve each one of those and move forward. At that point, if it was a project that fell within building services, I would go out and I would get quotes and hard numbers. Because there's really no sense in going and getting quotes and hard numbers or bids unless you actually really are almost certain you're going to do that project. Because if you're not certain you're going to do that project, the numbers are really no good because you don't know when you're going to start or if you're going to start. Sure. You end up doing the process again. That to say, yes, I would certainly work on trying to get something together for the auditor numbers.
I just know that with Director Heisel and Director Byer on their projects, they had hard quotes. And I think with the Treasurer and Auditor's Office, they were kind of relying on, because that's your cup of tea, right? Your department works in these offices, but
Right,
you
but I
also
wasn't
have.
informed what CIP projects we were doing this year.
Sure.
I didn't send out those requests or get those returned to me.
Yeah, and you've been busy too, so that's why I wanted to ask if that's something you could do, or if there's contractors or someone that, because these two are very, very self-sufficient. I know that they could find hard numbers if we asked them to, but that's my reservation tonight. As far as some of these other ones, I think that there's merit there. I would just like to see something a little bit more concise, if that's fair, so.
That's fair. I'll have to dive into what the actual project is supposed to encompass and what the needs are, and then price each of those needs, but yeah.
And same with the carpet up in HR, same thing, would just like to see that
Sure,
nailed a little closer.
absolutely.
So with that, Kenny, I know we're going here a little while, but like, just for, since you're busy, would it be better to instruct like Melissa and our elected officials to go out and get those quotes and then just run them by you? Because, and let them schedule people to come in and give us some numbers instead of you being that, and just let them get that and then come back to you and saying, hey, does this look legit? Would that help save time? I know you're busy.
The HR carpet's an easy one.
Okay.
That's not a big space, there's not a lot involved there.
Okay.
Other aspects like the auditor's office would be a bigger one. Then we're talking about cubicles, layouts. When we talk about that, we start talking about data and electricity that gets affected, maybe not airflows. So a lot of different other contributing factors start coming
So
into
you should
play there.
probably be there, yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right.
So the price on the Anthem and actually the Sioux City was basically done at 6,000 square foot of wall space at $10 a square foot, which would be an all-in price in terms of having to move things around unless we want to just paint around the file cabinets and things like that. That would include taping off any windows or anything else when they come in and do any kind of painting. So, $10 a square foot probably is not an unreasonable price per square foot for painting. The 6,000 square foot of wall space is probably the biggest guess in terms of how much wall space do we actually have. So it's not square foot of building, it's your wall. So, that's how the number was arrived at. Again, there's some logic as to how the number came about, but it is just a guess. And I think I would agree with Kenny too. Having somebody come out and actually price it out could be a good start if we wanted to get harder numbers. But we could end up having to do it again if it doesn't get approved or if the budget doesn't come in. But sometimes that's what it's about. Sometimes we have to go through that effort. And I certainly don't mind putting out a bid if I had some guidance in terms of I don't want to step on other people's toes and I want to make sure that I'm following within procurement codes. And make sure that we're not, overstepping some of those requirements in terms of what we need to do to be able to actually award something if we were to get a price that was reasonable. So those are the only things but if we wanted to do that, I could always go out and, try to get a little bit harder numbers on it.
So Tina's just made a good point, and it's maybe made it better than I tried to. It depends on the project. Every project is different. The Anthem project, for instance, she's really only talking about paint, moving furniture and files out of the way, and people. But there isn't a lot of other aspects involved with that project. It's fairly basic. Each project is unique and different of itself, depending on what the needs are.
I'm not sure we're ready tonight to define numbers on these. I'll just say my main thoughts on the auditor's areas related to that cost whenever Kenny has time to, since he wasn't necessarily brought in early in this process, whenever he has time or someone has time to look at that cost, that's my only concern with the auditor's project. My concern with the Little Anthony Courthouse or those projects is I don't know if paint's all we need. And I don't know if that's the main thing we need to pursue. We may move file cabinets to paint behind it and find out we need to be spending the money on something much more important. I mean, like Kenny said, I remember when we got the building from Anthony, and it was under emergency situation with the roof. And I understand about paint protecting what's behind it, but what if what's behind it is already in much dire need of something else? So those are my two thoughts on those two projects. I would love to just say we could dedicate to one or the other and pursue that, and whatever's left over, then we move off. But until we know more comprehensively what the needs are at Anthony, it would just seem like a guessing game. And again, I don't want to throw necessarily a coat of paint on something that needs much more attention.
Right. So I guess the board agrees, treasurer and the auditor, would you just work with Kenny when he has time to look at some bids, look at what's truly the scope of what you need done, maybe bring back some firmer price for the board, and we can just, then we can know exactly what we need to approve. And
It's up to you guys what
Right.
you approve, and there
Sure.
is a motion that you made.
Right.
So whatever you desire is what we'll do.
Yeah. Well, I'll rescind my motion, the 100,000 to the auditors. I'll make a motion for the auditor and the treasurer to work with building services and bring back some, I don't know what you want, quotes, bids, ideas, maybe some firmer prices. I don't know how to word that. Let me think of how to word that. Is that,
We don't need a motion.
we don't need a motion for that? Okay. Okay. Okay, just want to make sure. If you know that we need a motion, I want to, all right.
They already said they'll do it.
Right, true. Just want to make sure we're above board, make sure it's in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would just say, I would say Tina and Michelle, if you could do that, come back to the board. Some prices. I do agree with Matthew. I think it doesn't make sense. And Mark, too. I hear Mark, some of your concerns. Knowing what's firmer pricing will help us be able to prove the right amount and what is necessary. Maybe one needs more, one needs less to accomplish the goal, so. Okay, any other discussion on that? Once again, whatever's remaining will stay there, and we can come back and approve any more.
Yeah, so my math shows we got 176,505 left in CIP.
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm. Yep,
Great.
okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for that discussion. Yes, Tina?
I just want to make sure that we talked about, or that the fees for the loans and stuff like that were identified in
Yes,
there.
that is, yeah. That-
It's listed, so.
Yeah, Ryan has that in there, right?
That is part of what's already been approved.
Approved, yep.
Okay.
Yep. The 18,000, yeah, for the loan. Yep, loan fees.
Yeah, loan fees.
Okay.
And thank you, Ryan, for all your work going back on all these previous years' CIPs. That was excellent, excellent work, so thank you.
All right, going forward, number 15, reports and committee meetings.
Yes, we were at the Veterans Affairs Committee meeting on June 4th, and just went through some consent agendas, and also talked about the Mardi Gras parade on July 3rd and Bronson Parade on July 4th. But the important thing that took place there is that there was an individual that came inside the Veterans Affairs office and came up to Lonnie in a threatening manner. And of course, Lisa was also in the building. But so during that meeting, we came to the conclusion just to lock the door and just, be careful with who you let in at the time. I also called Kenny Schmitz on this event, or about this event, and looked at possibly putting security device on the building or some cameras. And then, of course, an officer was called and removed that man from the office. And so just asked Kenny just to maybe give us some numbers on what it would cost to provide some security devices for that building. But just wanted to bring that up, so.
Okay. All right, thanks, Ken. All right, any other reports on meetings? Anybody have any?
The only one I had, I talked about a little bit during the conservation item, but I met with Mayor Correctionville and their clerk and one of their councilmen, as well as Mike Montino and Megan Knoll from Community Action and Rob Wick from Iowa Economic Development Authority. We talked a lot about the funding through HUD. As we all would probably guess, anything federal government has a lot of hoops to jump through, a lot of paperwork and a lot of waiting. But I think it was a very fruitful meeting. Correctionville is going to work on a wish list of things that they're hoping to get funding for, and we were able to talk through that. So it was just a very productive meeting, and I'm thankful that there is some resources out there for some of these individuals and cities that have been impacted by the flooding. So,
Okay. All right. See none, all right. Number 16, citizen concerns. Anyone come to the mic and speak?
Good evening. My name is Linda Fickbaum. I'm president of Office Elements, which is a commercial interiors and furniture company in Sioux City. I'm here with a couple members of my team, Andy Greer and Brad Arndt. We are here understanding this CIP and obviously some opportunities that we see maybe would be available to a local entity. I just want to remind the board that Woodbury County residents live here. We provide those services. Mr. Nelson, you asked about, how do these layouts work, and cubicles and so forth. That's a service we provide many times, working with public entities under national contracts. We provide those services pro bono, without cost. So we can help lay out offices, we can help provide ideas, and that is not at a cost. We've worked heavily with Kenny. We did the law enforcement center, a large portion of it. So we're very tuned into ergonomics, we're very tuned into county and public funds. So we just came here to represent and say, please don't forget about your local citizens and what they do. So that's why I'm here. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Laura.
Hi, I'm Andy Greer with Office Elements also. We had read this in the journal that you were looking for some funds to maybe do this. And I didn't know if it was on the addendum, so it was like Friday afternoon when I could read this. And so I went to Han, which is what we did mostly at the Law Enforcement Center. I got a hold of our rep and see if we could obtain the same discounting we used for the Law Enforcement Center, which was a substantially bigger project. And they have allowed us to do that. So as of Monday afternoon, yesterday afternoon, he had sent me a new contract. So the way that works is generally the discount that's on there is what you buy it at, same discount as I buy it at. And then they just reimburse us a small amount for being the dealer of choice or dealer of record. So I just thought that you'd want to know that it is extended out to the end of 2025.
Okay.
Doesn't mean we couldn't try to re-up it for next year or whenever you plan on doing this project. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yeah. Anyone else?
Tina Bertrand again. Just wanted to touch a little bit on some of the suspended taxes. I know that we had that as part of this consent agenda items. And the one thing, because when people do come off a suspension, the one thing that I think this is more for the community at large and maybe a teaching opportunity maybe in the future. Suspended taxes, when people come off the suspensions, those taxes will come due at some point in time. Sometimes the the situations will vary a little bit. They'll come due when property transfers. But, you know, and that's usually in the supplemental, the supplemental income, as long as the property stays in the homeowner's name. The suspended taxes that were suspended will stay suspended, future taxes may not, but when property transfers, unless it's to a surviving spouse, those suspended taxes do come due. And what happens is we deal with it a lot at the treasurer's office, and everyone's very, very, very surprised that they owe the taxes. And so it's important to basically differentiate between suspended and abated. Abated is they no longer exist. And so at some point, just for the board's, you know, for future issues or future requests, I don't know if maybe if we actually ask them to sign something, maybe something that we could help communicate it with, or even have maybe a meeting with some of the people who are, and I know that some people just kind of make a submittal, they'll submit an application, and we don't always have the opportunity to talk to them, but I think it's very important to also take that time to make sure that they're also applying for every credit available to them. Many don't apply for homestead exemption, and that's money that they don't have to pay back. So we just want to make sure that we can communicate with the community on some of those things. Thanks.
Thanks, Tina.
I just have a couple of things. I'll make it quick. I stand up here torn on this CIP. I know Laura needs a building. I've been there. I've seen that. That is a need. But we're looking at saving $75,000 to $100,000 by working with a contractor that was in the area and saving mobilization fees, the whole works. So I was really hoping that would go. We had go in to do it again. We're going to be paying mobilization. It's going to cost more money. They're not going to be in the area. So I'm very supportive of these other projects. I know Laura needs it, but and then I want to touch on how the process went. I like this process a lot better than it was in the past, where the budget director and Bill, and nothing against Kitty, where they got together and looked at the projects, and I had nobody talk to me about EMI CIPs in the 7 years I've been here, till this year, when I asked for that. I think there needs to be interaction from the board. I think they need to have information from the department heads. You know, if they're working with Kenny, great. But I think that process needs to keep being streamlined. I think you need to be getting quotes. I know Kenny said they outdate, but they give you a starting point. I get my board requests that we have quotes, RFPs or bids. Right. So you know where you stand, because I don't go to them and Mark can attest to that and say, well, I might need this much, but you know, it might be less. And nothing against these guys about doing that, because that's the way it's been done in the past. But I really think we need to be looking at solid numbers and not just going up to 100,000 or 150 and hope that it's less, because it could be more. Right. And then what do you do? So, sorry, get off my soapbox. But anyway, very supportive of what you did today. Thank you for what you did for me. I would like to enter in annual reports from the Conservation Board to the supervisors last fiscal year and this fiscal year.
Move to receive.
Second. Motion by Nelson, second by Bittinger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion passes 5-0.
Do you have an electric version of that you can email us?
Pardon me?
Do you have an electric version?
I got electronic.
Electric. It's been a long night. Please do.
You want that sent to you?
Yes, thank you.
There we go. Give that to Michelle, please. Both those to Michelle. Anything else? Yeah. Those two to go together. Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dan. All right. Any citizen concerns? All right, moving on. Not seeing any. Moving on to board concerns. Any board concerns?
So I'd just like to say thank you to Tina. You know, I talked to her this week from a concerned citizen and, you know, had her look up a couple things for me, and, you know, she took care of it right away and got back to me. And also Laura in the Secondary Roads Department, talking to Michael, the District 5 foreman, and getting out and looking at some roads and taking care of that stuff right away. So.
Yeah. Good. Thank you, Dave.
I know the governor watches our board meetings, so I just wanted to remind Governor Reynolds to sign House File 639 by this weekend.
Hear, hear.
That's the no eminent domain for private gain bill. And also to thank some of our state senators for their stand to make that vote happen and that successful vote happen as well. Well, it does make me a little nervous when I see constituent emails from my state senator, Kevin Alon's, basically making the case to sign the bill. It should be pretty self-evident to the governor and those that have her ear, so I will say if it is not signed, unfortunately, it's probably shows one of the main reasons she did not choose to run for reelection. Because a career legacy defining moment like this, you don't have reelection to worry about, is kind of a dangerous place for constituents when you have an issue that has so much bipartisan support.
Absolutely.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Hearing none, we're